Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another session of MBA Analytical. It's a session that I'm super excited about. In this session, we're going to talk about how to portray leadership in your B school application. Leadership as a topic is often confused. So hopefully in the session, we're going to dispel some of those myths about leadership. We'll give you enough examples as to how to portray leadership. And I have this amazing panel today. We have Shivangi from Wharton, Dusty from Harvard, and Abhinandini from Stanford. Um, so before we get started, we're going to share in a document. We're going to share their brief profiles. But Abhinandini, starting from you alphabetically, let's start with give a brief background about where you're coming from and just so that people have an idea about your profile, and then we'll go to Dusty and Shivangi.
Yes, sure. Quick professional background. So graduated out of Shriram College of Commerce in 2015. Worked in a global consulting firm, A.T. Kearney, right out of that. Did that for around 2.5 years. Then wanted to explore something at the intersection of early stage tech, investing and impact. So decided to join International Finance Corporation. It's a part of the World Bank Group, and I was part of a very, very small global team looking at venture capital investments. Was one of the two people here on ground in India. I was supposed to go to business school last year after working at IFC, but deferred my admit, will be going this year. And since last year, I've been looking at product and a few business things at this early stage women's health company called Proactive for Her. So it's a digital health clinic for women, and very excited to be here, Rajat, with you and Shivangi and Dusty.
All right, Dusty.
Yeah, my name is Dusty. Graduated from a small university in Alabama. I'm here in the United States right now, called Auburn University. Graduated in supply chain management. So I've worked at a company called Georgia Pacific for the past 4 years or so in a variety of supply chain based roles. So all the way from warehousing and logistics to what I'm doing now, strategic sourcing and procurement. So really looking to leverage the MBA program at HBS to both accelerate my development in supply chain as a field, as well as kind of broaden that skill set. So more than happy to talk about, my motives behind pursuing an MBA in general, anything like that. So,
Thank you, Dusty. Shivangi.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Shivangi. I graduated from Lady Shri Ram College, Delhi University back in 2016. I've been working for AB InBev since then, almost 5 years experience in a CPG, and have been I was hired as a global management trainee and then worked across various functions, mostly sales and marketing. Have headed a sales organization for almost 2 years, and now I'm the associate director for all our trade marketing operations across brands in India. And very excited to be here. Happy to help in case of any questions that you guys have, be it in terms of leadership or any application related stuff that you have. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, so this is the reason why I like this panel a lot. One, let's start with Shivangi. We have someone who's been into sales in CPG. It's fast moving, or I don't know if we call it in fast moving, although we drink a beer very fast. So then we have Dusty, who's from supply chain, and then Abhinandini, who's consulting and tech. And so three very different backgrounds, and all three of them have gotten into the top 5 schools in the world. So in addition to the ones that you see, they've gotten into other schools as well. So I expect to really see a very, let's call it, rich set of discussions with regards to our question, which is leadership. So let's start with our first question today. What does leadership mean from a B school context, and why do you think it's an important trait for an MBA? And Shivangi, we're going to start with you first because we started with Abhinandini early on. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rajat, for that question. So, I think Rajat, the first and foremost important thing for everyone to understand here today is that leadership is not about, say, managing a team per se. Like that's what, if you see, it might sound as a literal definition, but when we're talking about our experiences at a B school level, we're literally talking about what traits and what skill sets do one possess in order to have that potential to become a leader. and it could be in any individual capacity as well. Now I want to again stress about the fact that it is okay if you do not have a managerial experience where you're leading a team, but in your individual capacity, what exactly do you portray where you're able to create an impact, where you're able to motivate people around you, where you're able to drive results by not just your individual efforts, but literally how you're motivating people and taking them along, to create an impact, and you're questioning the status quo, you're taking on challenges. That really shows how you being an owner apart from your, say, job perspective, and how you have that potential to become a future leader. And that's what I think the B schools are today looking at, not just say that okay, you have a managerial experience, so you are a leader per se.
Okay, Dusty.
Yeah, and to build off that, I was banging my head against the wall for probably the first 6 months of my application cycle, trying to figure out what do these schools want. And I think we're going to touch on this a little bit later, but they don't want something specific. If you look up the definition of leadership at any of these schools, I think it's intentionally vague. The schools don't put a hard and fast definition on here's exactly what we want, because they want every applicant to define their own authentic brand, what they did on their job, how they manage people, how they work with other people, if you're not a manager. So I would say the definition of leadership for B School is intentionally pretty vague, but is all about empowering others, influencing others, building a vision, developing a strategy, and getting others to align with you and your perspective. But again, I think it ranges across the board how B Schools define leadership.
Okay, I just want to add one thing to it before, because a lot of I see the question on in the Q&A part. So Atul, if you can share the profile of our panelists today, that would be great. And then Abhinandini, over to you. If you can share that document, yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think I can't express it better than how Shivangi and Dusty have already put it. I think this is a question that we all struggle with, that, oh, I've not managed a team of 100, 200 people. How am I supposed to portray this? It's all about how you work in any context, and not just with the people you work with professionally, like what you're being paid for, but also how you work with somebody who's just recently joined the company. Are you mentoring them, or something like some sort of a non-for-profit that you might be consulting for or working for? How do you manage people there, and how do you work with there? And I think on top of that, what I'd also like to add is that there are a lot of people who struggle with this question as well, as what is your post MBA goal, or what do you want to do in the long term? I think that's another funnel for that specific B school to understand what exactly is your vision. And because as a leader, you also have to set sort of a vision for yourself over the next few years or in the long term. So I think they're not trying to assess, it's not a business plan competition, or it's not this competition to like say, okay, I have the most viable idea, but they're trying to assess your vision. They're trying to understand how big you dream, what kind of impact you want to make. And I think that also sort of feeds into leadership from a B school context, because they're trying to understand who you are and how you think about impact in the long term on what you want to like leave behind.
So three of you have gotten into top schools, and I think I want to ask you. So think about an MBA versus an MIM versus, let's say, a master's in tech. Leadership is not as big a component of those applications. Why do you think for an MBA, it's in many ways, it's even when there's no leadership essay, they kind of try and judge what kind of a leader you are or you're going to be. Why do you think it's important for an MBA?
Yeah, I
can
think
Well, go ahead, Shivangi.
Okay. I think, Rajat, it's very important for us to understand that why do we intend to do an MBA, and that's where every individual's own goals sort of come in. For me, I am coming from a CPG background. I've seen various functions, sales and marketing. For me, I wanted to aspire to become, say, a CEO of another CPG, or have my own startup, or have my own organization where I'm leading people. And that's where I realized that okay, probably the kind of skill set I have today might just be helpful for me to do my individual role probably, but then I need to hone my leadership skills further. And this is not a very technical kind of thing where I need to do an MTech kind of role or a master's in any other specific course, but this is more general management. This is more where I am looking at not something very, very technical or specific, but a more people oriented kind of skill where I'm not only just using my skill sets on ground as a salesperson, but also my motivations to lead people on how do I motivate to get things done from them. And that's why I think in MBA per se, it becomes a very important trait, because you're not just you're not a specific, specialist in a particular kind of field, but more of a generalist to manage people and motivate them. So that's what I think.
I absolutely agree with that. So I know we're getting a ton of questions here, which is how do I portray leadership? If you can see the Q&A pod or so. And what I want to really tell you is, we're going to answer those questions. In addition to that, you will also have the opportunity to, if you want, to work with these individuals or other similar individuals on a one-on-one, if you want to actually understand how to portray leadership in your application. And this is where all of these Abhinandini, Shivangi, and Dusty, we are helping raise awareness and funds for those who are suffering from COVID in India. So Shivangi, I'm going to share my screen, and can you talk about the offer, please?
Sure. Hi guys. So we just want to take a few minutes to talk about this initiative. So we are students who fight COVID, and it's an initiative that is, supported by more than 250 admits from all across the globe, like all the B schools. You can see Wharton, Stanford, HBS, Columbia, Northwestern University. So our goal basically is, of course, twofold. It's, back in like 3 weeks back, we realized that the COVID crisis in India is at the peak, and we as students wanted to come up and support in any possible way. So our goal was twofold. Firstly, was to make sure that we are able to support Swasth Foundation. It's a foundation which is it formed in 2009, and their goal is around preventive health care. So we collaborated with them, and the idea was to make sure that they are able to deploy as many oxygen concentrators in the rural part of India where there is a dire need to do that. And the second thing we realized that since a lot of students in general were reaching out to us for consultation, we wanted to make sure that we collaborate both these initiatives together and have a way where we are able to guide you. We are able to look at your applications, help you with your essays, we'll talk about the services we provide, but basically do that one-on-one connect with you. And all the proceeds of our sessions will be going to Swasth Foundation for the oxygen cylinders, concentrators that they want to provide. Yeah. Okay, so if you see, I just quickly will talk about what basically what kind of services we'll be looking at. So starting from school selection, because we understand a lot of you right now might have questions on which schools to go as per your profile. So starting from school selection to resume building to very specific questions around your essays, we literally will spend 1 hour talking, brainstorming with you on what are the aspects of your profile that we can help bring out in your essays, talking about your interview preps, post MBA goals, because post MBA goals, as Abhinandini was also mentioning, really shows across that what is the potential, what is your vision as a leader, and that's what we want to make sure we focus on as well. And in case you need any help with LORs as well. So what we really want you to do, and e-GMAT has been a wonderful partner in supporting us today with this initiative. For a 1 hour consultation, you have to pay a fantastic price of 1,999 in INR or $25. And e-GMAT is going to match the same amount for every consultation that we do up till, I think, top 100 students and people who are especially attending this webinar. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to sign up for this. That's what you get out of it. And the next slide just talks about how you do. I think Vandita on the call. So Vandita, again, our moderator for today, she is from our current batch of Wharton. Again, very supportive to help us out to answer all your queries. She has already posted this link that you can see. All you have to do, just go up, fill this form, and we will set you up with one of our mentors. All the proceeds, as I mentioned, will directly go to Swasth Foundation. And once you submit your form within like a 48-hour time period, we're going to set you up with one of our mentors, because like we have a huge team of 250 volunteers who have come up across different campuses and would be happy to help you with all queries you have.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I think I just want to add a couple of things over here. First of all, this is a fantastic opportunity. I wish when I was applying, I had this opportunity. It was about 18 years back, so the internet wasn't where it is today. But I think even if you're someone who's preparing for his or her GMAT and you want to kind of avail this opportunity a couple of months down the line, this is a fantastic strategic option to have to really say, hey, uh, I'll have the option to work with someone from a top B school for about an hour, and if you want to buy 2 slots, you can buy a couple of slots as well, and put that for a couple of months. I think that's something which you'd be there. In fact, even if you are working with an admission consultant, in my opinion, current students always know more about a school than an admission consultant would. So even if you're working with one, you're going to be paying them $5,000 or so for a single school application, or if you're in India, about ₹1 lakh, and having the strategic option to have that application reviewed by a current student who's done it, who's gotten a scholarship, I think is priceless, especially for the money that you'd be paying, and you'd be doing some good. There's a dollar for dollar match that we are doing. So make use of this opportunity, and Abhinandini, we just I just talked to Payal, and even if it goes beyond 100, we'll match it up to 150 folks to do this. So that's something that we'll do. So, and how will the matching of mentors be done? You can actually specify some insights into your background, and as you look at the form, you can tell my background's this, so we'll try and match the background, or try and match the school. We're going to try and make sure that you are matched with someone from whom you truly get value out of. So that's something that we'll try and do. All right. So that was there. So let's talk about the next piece, which is leadership again. Let's come back to that and say, how did you search for anecdotes from your background? So what process did you go through?
Yeah, I can take that one as well. So I think it really begins with, what do you define as leadership? And I think that's a whole separate question that we're getting into. But I think that's where it's important.
Oh, sorry. I think I messed up. So I think the next question was, what is the definition of leadership at Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton, and are they different? I think let's go from there, and then let's kind of get into this piece over there.
Yeah, I can take Harvard as well. Yeah, I mean, again, it is somewhat vague, but when you look at the definition on some of the websites and what you hear from professors and things like that, it really is about, how do you work with others? How do you influence others? How do you empower others? HBS, by definition, very much a general management program. Along with most other MBA programs, you're gaining the skills and learning how to work with people from a wide array of functions and industries. And so I think that's embedded into the definition of leadership at HBS, which I think is incredibly important.
I think I can go next and speak about Stanford specifically. So I think one thing that really attracted me to Stanford, and this is basis conversations that I've had with some of the alumni and current students, and also generally read about it online, is the entire bit about having this style of leadership which is very reflective, which is sort of vulnerable but strong. It's open to feedback, and it's the way to do it is with people. It's not just this sense of, oh, okay, I implemented this change at this organization. It's very reflective. It's more about people. It's about impacting lives and changing that. So that's something that really attracted me to the school, and even the courses that are spoken about quite a bit. I think Touchy Feely is one course which has been around for 40, 50 years at Stanford, which stresses this, and this is a course that most of the Stanford students take in the first year, where it's in an intimate setting. They're given regular feedback, and they do projects together, and they hone their leadership style and get to know what is it that they can do better. So I think that reflective style of leadership, which is where you know what it is, you're self-aware on what you need to improve, while dreaming big, staying grounded, staying humble, and being grounded in that community of people and being empathetic while dreaming big and going out and executing. I think that's something that stood out at Stanford for me.
Yeah. I'll go about Wharton now. So I think as Abhinandini also mentioned, it is about the school, and I think it differs across the schools. Firstly, to answer that, Rajat, for Wharton, and Wharton was like my top choice over here because of what Wharton really believes in leadership. Now I think both of them spoke about different aspects of leadership. What attracted me to Wharton was how it really focuses on diversity and inclusion as one of the very important aspects of a leader. And why that is important today, because we know like the world is changing, and if you look at any kind of country, it's not just limited to any gender diversity anymore. It has gone beyond that, and it focuses on ethnicity, it focuses on cultures and every other aspect from a diversity perspective. So more and more leaders today are coming up and talking about how we can be more inclusive, and that really leads to a growth of every organization. And for me, that stood out for Wharton specifically. And like if you see, the school preaches this in every possible way. It is one of the schools where even the dean is the first female black woman
That's
who's
true.
been leading the as a dean. And then even the kind of courses that you have, or the leadership programs, there's a McNulty leadership program, there are various courses on diversity, because the focus of the school is to make sure that every student who sort of graduates inculcates this diversity aspect and inclusivity aspect as one of the key traits when they look at leadership for the future organization. So that stood out for me for Wharton.
So I think we have three different schools, and I'd say three overlapping. I wouldn't call it super different, but three overlapping definitions of leadership. Where Stanford was that touchy feeling yet visionary kind of leadership, where you, as a leader, you're getting feedback. Wharton's much more focuses a lot more on diversity and being inclusive. And at Harvard, you work with people. Again, you have that vision. You take people along with you. So overlapping, yet slightly different. So that's wonderful. So let's kind of talk about, given these contexts, and each one of you had a certain set of schools in mind. Um, how did you search for leadership in your profile? What questions did you ask? And how did you go about this deliberation? How frustrating? How long was this process for you?
I can go. So I
Yes.
think I did my applications in round two, and it was a bit difficult, start to take out time, because, as I mentioned, I was a part of a small global team. So for everybody out there who's struggling to take out time from work and do this, I can highly relate with it. So I did do my applications very centered around in December, which is in time for round two. But then I think what I did do well is I introspected for a very, very long time. And the introspection was not just focused on leadership, but focused on what makes me me, and what kind of career choices I've made and why have I made those choices. And even before career, I would say, like, some of the academic choices I made, or why did I make that. And my profile was, of course, consulting, and I got promoted in my job, and I got the rare chance of managing two people on one of my last projects at AT Kearney as well. Though I know that it's a bit rare to get that chance as well. And then I was in venture capital, and I was an analyst. So of course, I did not have a team reporting into me, and I was the junior most resource. So my idea of leadership and introspecting about it was not exactly that, oh, I have to write that I manage XXYZ people, or I founded this company, and let me write about that. It was very people oriented, and how I saw myself evolving as a person. I think a lot of my introspection was rooted in it, that some of the feedback I got from some work I did at Kearney, as I mentioned, where I managed two people, and it was my first time, and of course I was bound to fall, right. So and just understanding what went wrong, being vulnerable about it, taking the feedback in the right stride, and being reflective about how can I improve, and what I learned from people on the way, even though I did not manage a large team or anything after that in the job I applied for B schools from, but but understanding what exactly is the impact I created. And even for a client, right? Like if you're working with a client, or if you're working with a startup as an investor, what kind of impact you made on a personal level, because leadership is not just as Shivangi and Dusty have also said earlier, is it's not just about managing like a team of large people and seeing them to complete a task. It's also about the personal impact you create, how you convince people, how you navigate through your day to day with them. So I said that I introspected a lot about that, and that's where my applications were more focused on. It was the personal level impact I created, and how it has shaped me, and which traits of mine led me to even act like that.
So, Abhinandini, I want to ask a follow-on question to you. This was very helpful. So, when you say you introspected so much, did you kind of write those introspections out somewhere to really say, this is experience one, this is what I just some bullet points, or was this something that was just going on in your brain?
I wish I had written it down. I think I would have benefited a lot more. I think one of the tips someone senior to me had given me, who had been through that entire B school process, was that don't write it down even when you're introspecting, but write it down on your day to day. Like something happens, and maintain some sort of a log of something like this is happening, because you'll after 2-3 years you'll be introspecting and sitting, and you won't even remember some of the things that were going on at that time, and some of the impact you were creating, or something about where it was hard to manage somebody, or you were handling too much responsibility, you were managing a difficult stakeholder or something. So I wish I had taken that advice. I'm so I'm not the best person because I didn't take that advice, but so I introspected a lot of it in my head, and I spoke through it with my friends who I felt knew me. And so it was very nice for me to have like that one partner through the application process, and we both used to introspect together. But I wish I had written it down in real time, not just
But you were
after,
still
like,
having that conversation with that person.
yeah. So it was throughout like, even though we were not writing anything down, because like just work and stuff, and it was just introspection over chai or something. But I think that really helped me, is thinking through it with my friend who I felt knew me, and it was the same for that person as well, as they were applying to these schools. So it was just introspecting with one another person that definitely helped me. And though I wish I had written stuff down, and in real time, not afterwards, but in real time when things were happening, just logging things down, that this is happening with me, and this is something that I'm encountering professionally or personally, how it's shaping me.
Okay. All right. Dusty?
Yeah, I think first of all, to echo that, the process itself is incredibly reflective. That probably took me 3 months to really just take a step back. We all have motivations throughout our career. What led us to take this job? What drove us to get on this project? And I think mapping those out really helps. I also did not formally write mine down. One thing that I did was I actually went back through my resumes and interview preparation that I had done like 5 years in advance applying to Georgia Pacific, and really looked back on, hey, what motivated me at that time? How did my resume change? What did I think was important in each job that I was doing? And that really allowed me to assess, what are my motivations? Which again leads into the second part, which is, how do I define leadership? Leadership for me in this context is the pulp and paper industry is somewhat traditional, has many people that I was working with that have been in the industry for 30 or 40 years. And oftentimes, I've been in 4 different roles. Oftentimes, I was the youngest person, least experienced person on my team. So my definition of leadership, and where I really started to look for examples in my profile, in my past, was, how have I influenced these people with 40 years of knowledge in the industry to change their mind, or to make a different decision, or to agree with my perspective coming in with 6 months of experience. And so that's where I really began to define what motivates me, what sorts of experiences can I point to in the MBA application that represent my definition of leadership, which is very, very individualized, understanding individual motives, feedback, things like that, which is, again, shaped by my experience, where I would recommend, hey, print off several of your resumes throughout time, look at how those differ, and kind of go from there. That was my strategy.
So Dusty, just having been in your industry, I pity your position, man. That's what I would say. Those guys don't budge. And if you were able to make them budge, hats off to you. And I understand why Harvard selected you. Okay.
Yep.
All right, Shivangi.
Yeah. So Rajat, I think I'll pick up from what Dusty just mentioned here. I'll talk about the process, but I'll just start off with what leadership means to me, and then I'll come to the process part of it. So for me, I think I had a little similar journey, I would say, as Dusty, because and I was fortunate enough to get a leadership opportunity at AB InBev. So I started off as the first female and the youngest sales manager to lead a city, and which was the city of Bangalore in India. So firstly, why this in itself becomes a unique thing, which I thought when I was introspecting myself, that when I looked around, there were no female, like there were hardly any females. In fact, in leadership positions, there were none. So for me, taking that challenge up and going to a team of experienced people, going to a set of trade partners who are very adamant, who have never even seen a woman walking into this industry, became a challenge in itself. And for me to navigate all of this and then portray, like do my bit in changing things around, was where I really thought my leadership skills sort of helped me. So
can I just interject one thing? Can you also tell
Sure.
what does AB InBev do? I mean, just for everyone.
Yes. So we are the biggest brewers of beer in the world. We manufacture beers like Budweiser, Corona, Hoegaarden, and that's why this is the alcobev segment, which is very
The
niche
male-dominated
and
industry.
very male-dominated.
Yes, so I think
Exactly.
that's context is really important. So yes, please. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Carry on.
thanks for that interjection. Yeah. So just coming back to this point now, for me, as I mentioned, the leadership part was not that okay, I have a team of 10 people under me, but it was really about what are these challenges and how I'm taking that up, and what are these anecdotes, or what are my examples when when I was able to create a change, where I was able to create an impact, and in fact like motivate these adamant people, be it my trade partners or my teams who have much higher experience or much longer experience than me. And that really helped me portray a lot of my examples through the stories that I've had over the last 2 years to portray my leadership skills at a college like Wharton and the other schools. Talking about the process part of it now, I think I started off way earlier than I think Dusty or even Abhinandini, and I think I took a lot more time because, you don't in your normal 5-year time period where you're working, you really don't introspect, which is a very important tip. I think if I should give it to the students, what Abhinandini has just raised, because otherwise you will have a hard time where you really have to sit down and introspect in every aspect of your profile. Now, I also picked up my resume. I literally had all the why questions around it, whether it is a president role that I took at Enactus in my LSR. So why did I take that up? What were the stories around it? What were the impact? Things that I could do over there. Then talking about my journey at AB InBev. Now here again as well, it's not just those 2 years where I had leadership as a title, but a lot more on the impact projects I could do and the changes I could make. And even before that, like even if say there is an individual role that I took up, if there was a project that I could take where I had to motivate more people, not in my leadership capacity, but just around being that person who's leading that project and creating that impact. So I took the approach of literally writing down each and everything because that's what worked for me, where I could sit down, put all my anecdotes, and then knit that, okay, what really motivates me, or what am I passionate about? What are the things that excite me? And how do I make sure that what skills will I be able to portray through those anecdotes? So that's the process part of bringing about the leadership aspects of my profile.
Okay, so this is a question which is not on the questionnaire that we discussed, but just I want to just, since you guys already have your admissions, you have your scholarships, I think I should ask this question. When you were doing this, when you were going through this process, did you ever doubt yourself, saying that, hey, I'm not good enough for the school, or did that fear ever creep into your thought process? Man, I have all of these experiences, but maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe.
Yeah, For me, it was 100%. I'm coming from a school in the U.S., pretty large, state school. I thought it was a fantastic school, but it's not in the top, 50 public universities if you look at it like that. But I think going through this exercise, defining your own leadership style and what you define as leadership in general, helped me overcome a lot of that. And that, hey, I do have a unique set of skills to offer to this class. I think that's important, is that every single person has an individual story that throughout the MBA application process, you begin to reflect on and really bring out. So I think that was a really cool component of just reflecting on my career thus far.
So doing this addressed your fears is what you're saying. Just going through this exercise addressed
Right.
those fears that you initially thought you weren't good enough and for Harvard
Right.
and that.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Shivangi, let's go back to you and then we'll go to Abhinandini.
Sure. Yeah, I think, Rajat, that's a very valid question. And to be honest, I think the applicants even I have spoken to, taking my own personal example, these questions are bound to happen when you're writing, your applications and you're introspecting where because, there is no short formula. Okay, you do X, Y, Z, and then you get an admission. It's never like that. And as Dusty mentioned, it's really very unique to each individual. Like your profile, how do you bring out those aspects which stand out, and how do you think they will be valuable to the class becomes very important. And that's when I sort of sat down and I started writing my stories. I just always thought that, okay, if I'm going to this class or if I'm talking about this particular school, then what are my how do I bring value to it? How do the peers around me will learn from me, and of course the aspect of learning from them as well. But what are those kind of actions that really helpful? But this question always remains that you keep doubting yourself, and at that time I would also suggest talk to as many people as you can. There are so many people who have been in your shoes, who have been through this entire journey. In fact, this whole initiative is just to support so many students, because probably we didn't get that kind of experience. So take out this one-on-one sessions with us and see that in any way you might just pick up one or two things from a conversation which might just change your entire application. So talk to as many people and consult, and then sort of build your stories is what I would suggest.
Okay. Abhinandini, what about you?
I'm so glad that you asked this question, Rajat, because this is so natural. And in so many of the folks that I've spoken to through students side COVID and even otherwise, this is a recurring question that, oh, I don't think I have the chance to get into HSW, or I don't have a chance to get into the specific school of my choice. Maybe I should go for something like this. And I spoke to XNX admission consultant, and they're asking me that if I don't get a 750 on my GMAT, I will not make it through. I would say that it's a very daunting time for a lot of people, and especially I've felt Indians. I've seen that I have like this tendency to be overly competitive and then sometimes put themselves down, and especially more women. I've encountered that with a lot. That oh, maybe this is something that we're not good enough for. To that, I would say just surround yourself with positivity and be audacious, and cut out all the toxicity in life. There are some people who remind you of that, or if it's even just social media, just cut it out. Don't see it for a year. Go through this entire process and have that belief in yourself. And you don't need to shout out that belief out of like from rooftops. You just need to believe in yourself, and you have to do your best effort and just get it through. And even if you don't make it through, it's completely okay. Like one thing that I had in my mind was that it's fine. I'm applying in round 2, sort of a traditional profile, not something to be very outlandish about. And there were not many cases of people getting even an interview from IFC at Stanford. I hardly knew anybody even going to Stanford, and even HBS. So for me also, it was a bit. It was something that I was just going for, but then Vinod Khosla applied, I think, twice to Stanford before he got in.
Oh wow!
So if
Okay.
Vinod Khosla can do it, all of us can do it too. So I just took that approach, and I said that let's go for it, and let's see where we land up, and not be afraid to fail. Just if that's a school of your choice, you'll always regret not applying for it. So be audacious, take that chance, and give it your full effort. Don't give it a half-ass effort just because you think you might not get in.
So I really like what you said, is shut off social media. I think what you're really saying is, in many ways, as a leader, manage yourself, define a set of things that you will do and a set of things that you won't do. And as long as you're executing on those things, you're putting in your best effort, just don't worry about it. You're going to do your MBA once, especially in the US where it's super expensive. And so tell yourself what is it that you're going to do, and then leave the rest to how you stack up against others. And I think that's something that is there. So let's talk about the last question for today, and we're 40 minutes into it. What were your leadership experiences? So talk about the experience that you portrayed, and talk about one other experience that you had in the back of your pocket, and you kind of, that was kind of your number two. So this time we'll go with, we'll start with Abhinandini again because she was last. So let's start.
So the question is, how did I portray?
What was that specific? What was that? If there's one specific leadership experience that you portrayed that you want to talk about, and you can add some context to it, and then really say this is what I did, and yeah.
Yeah, so I think I focused a lot of my personal experiences, and even in the professional setting, it was sort of my personal experiences of what I had with a specific client, and or how I convinced them to get on board with some initiative. So it was very personal oriented, and then it was very vulnerable in the sense that, okay, this is something that I've had to work on as a person, and this is something that I have maybe not done well, and I've taken this feedback and I'm actively working on it. So for me, it was very rooted on personal relationships. It was not very professional saying that, oh, I have managed a team of X and Y and I delivered this project. It was not like that for me. And I think everybody's context is sort of different. But this is how I chose to portray it. And of course, there are recommendations and everything. So those people anyways write stuff about you saying that, this person delivered XYZ project for me. So I don't think you need to focus a lot on posting about some of the stuff you've done, because there are recommenders. There's your CV. They understand that if you've been in certain position, you might have managed XY people and delivered like a project which is really, really great. But so I chose to focus on more of the personal stuff where I talked about how I did how I brought about change with just this one specific client, and it led to a greater impact with the work I was doing at Carney. And I spoke very specifically about some of the feedback I got as somebody who was managing people, and how I've been acting on it, and my personal story of how these traits, like where I get these traits from, how as a person, what shaped me as a person in my personal life that led me to act like this later.
So it was, but it's still a professional
it.
setting. I mean, it was a client, so it was still a professional setting in many ways.
Yeah.
The interaction was a bit more personal, is what you're really saying, and it.
Yes. So I focus on more of the personal aspect of it rather than talking about that I delivered XYZ cost savings. I talked about how I made an impact personally through my way of convincing this person or getting them in my team per se, because consulting projects a lot of times are about collaborating with an external client who just might think of you, who's this 20-something-year-old who's just come to tell me about how to run business, right? Like I've been in this business for 20 years. What does this person know about me? So I focused more on those aspects of how I brought about change and build that relationship, and how that helped me grow as a person, rather than just telling somebody about how I delivered XYZ projects, or how rather than talking more about the impact, I talked more about how I navigated
How you made that, how you made that impact. And I think leadership is always about humans, because machines don't need to be, they need to be told, they don't need to be guided. But yeah, it's all about interacting with humans and convincing humans to follow that path. So Dusty, for you, what was your experience that you chose, or that one experience that you would like to share with us? I mean, it doesn't have to be the one.
Yeah, I will say that I started this off with both the best and worst advice I'd heard during the MBA application process, which is be yourself. Because it's the best because you don't want to present something you're not, but it's the worst because it's really hard to figure out kind of who you are. So I would say that's what drove the leadership experiences that I was building into my profile, as I mentioned a minute ago. So that's where I found one specific scenario where, to give a high-level background, I managed the relationship between Georgia Pacific and third-party contract manufacturers. So they're making things on our behalf. And so specific to that, I noticed that we approached our supplier relationships somewhat tactically. And I felt that there was more value between the two companies, kind of that concept of shared value. However, I was in a team where everyone had 25 years of experience. So for me to come in and say, hey, I think this is a better way to approach these supplier relationships, I didn't want to be viewed as arrogant, because I didn't know, I hadn't tried that in the past. I didn't really know much of what I was doing. I just knew the theory of it. And so for my leadership experience, I really focused on what drove the individual decision makers on my team, and what motivates them. One person felt, after a few conversations, I felt was motivated by data. They wanted to see the hard cost savings. And so that's where I took this strategy, ran it through a few kind of simulations that I built, and presented the benefit to this person. Another person wanted to see more of the touchy-feely side, where, hey, how does this impact our supplier relationships? How does it make suppliers feel? So then I went and gathered some additional feedback from peers, what had worked in the past, and shared it with that person. So it's really all about building alignment to this strategy and to this theory, predicated upon understanding individuals that I was working with. And so that's an experience that came up multiple times in my interview and my application process, because it really was about empowering and understanding individuals around me, and kind of what motivates them. So that was an experience that I really drew on.
It's an excellent experience, very much in line with the letter of recommendation questions that we as recommenders get. So so it's an excellent experience, and given the industry that you've been in, I can understand why it's so challenging.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Shivangi, how about you? What was it?
Yeah, so Rajat, for me, I think as I would sort of echo what Abhinandini just mentioned, because though, as I mentioned, that I still had 2 years of leadership experience, but for me, it wasn't about where I showed that, okay, as a sales leader, I could achieve X, I delivered Y. It really wasn't about that, because I believe that that is your role. Like, you're supposed to do that. That does not mean a lot of, leadership skills there. So I really looked at what are the personal traits that I want to talk about, or how my journey has been as a leader. And for me, I just didn't portray like one example of leadership. It was a series of smaller events which showed a more habit of leadership, or a more habit of taking ownership. Because for me, it was wherever, like in whichever role or whichever initiative I'm doing, how am I taking a step ahead and being an owner of something which is beyond my purview. So I started like with my college experience of Enactus, where we worked with acid attack survivors, where it was a very like a difficult experience to even convince the college or even convince my team that why we want to take up this project, and then the impact that we could create with this project, to moving on to where I found that my passion is towards being this inclusive leader myself. And when I realized that I am, say, the one who is breaking gendered stereotypes by being this female sales leader, I realized that a lot of challenges lie in organizations in their inability to have a very safe working environment for not just women but different like groups as well. So I took again an initiative to be the D&I champion at AB InBev, where we started with initiatives where we are making the sales organization a much safer organization, where we are training women, where we are educating them how to on safety. We are taking initiatives to make sure their experience in the sales field is much more safe, and so on. And that made me sort of realize that this is what I want to talk about as something that motivates me, or is my passion towards changing things around and questioning the status quo, that why things have to happen in a certain way. And that's why it was not just one experience for me, but just a series of experiences where every role or opportunity I'm just questioning and sort of voicing and changing things around. So yeah.
Perfect. Okay. I think it's time for our Q&A. Thank you so much, first of all, for sharing those experiences. This is really good. I think our attendees got to learn a lot about it. So should we bring Vandita in here? Vandita, would you like to take some of the questions? Because I see there are lots of questions about how do you go about booking? Can you book multiple slots? So Vandita, let me know. Let
Yeah.
me add you to stream.
Thanks. So just to give a brief about Students Fight COVID, we're a student-run organization, 250 people who've recently got together, and we're trying to raise funds, to fight against COVID. But as I see, the questions that have come up are more around how do we match mentors and how smoothly is it done. We're actually, asking you a little bit about your background in the form itself, and by looking at that, we have a mentor matching process which can get you aligned to someone who's had a very similar experience as you. So that definitely is something that our audience today can get by looking up at the sign up link or our website. And I've tried to kind of answer most of these questions on chat, but you can definitely sign up for multiple sessions. Someone asked if I could look at something 2 months down the line. We can connect you to your mentor today, and you can have a connection, a conversation going, which you can look at 2 months down the line as well.
And there's this other question: how are these sessions scheduled? I mean, is it scheduled as per the mentor's availability or mine? Can I get multiple time slots and I can choose one out of those?
So yeah, it's typically, once we match the mentor and the mentee, you can look at kind of aligning time schedules that match both. So it's done keeping, both our people in mind. So don't worry about that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I would just really reiterate, this is a fantastic opportunity for you to work with someone from a top B school, and because you're doing that one-on-one match, where you only pay $19.99 and or $25, and we match that. So it's I think you're getting a double impact for with regards to that. And I don't know, in India, do you save taxes on donation? I think you might end up saving some tax on donation as well. So.
Yes.
So you might get a benefit for you and kind of save taxes on it. So
Thank you.
Yes. There's a couple of other questions that go to the panelists. So I think this is a question. Leadership is always seen in conjunction with teamwork. How do you ensure that you answer the question effectively so that you shine a light on your leadership as well as being a team member or so? So who wants to take this on?
I can take that one because I had that same issue. My only advice there is develop 3 leadership and teamwork stories, because oftentimes they do overlap. Hey, how do I lead this process change in a leadership sense, but also how do I bring others along with me in a teamwork sense? The only advice I can offer there is get 2 to 3 stories that you can speak to in your application, in an interview, that you can pull on.
Okay.
I think I just have a very small point just to add on to what Dusty said. I think it becomes very important where, again, I'm talking about the leadership part again, where you portray your own initiative and your own ownership, even in a team setting. So it doesn't mean that, you're not contributing to the team, but again, how you're taking one step ahead to lead the people or just to guide them or motivate them for something that you believe in will probably differentiate teamwork from leadership. That's what I think.
Okay, that's good. There's, I think, a very interesting question. Ariane says, at what point did you feel the need for an MBA? And then how long was the entire process? How long back did you feel the need that you need to do an MBA?
I can just talk about my process. So I think I wanted to get some global exposure, and I think these sentiments got very cemented when I was at IFC. So around 3 years into working professionally, where I felt that I needed some global exposure, and I really like an academic setting to learn new things. So I thought that an MBA would be a great way to do it. I also luckily got a chance to visit some of these business schools, attend some classes for myself, and I was traveling for work in the US. And that really helped me think that, I have a lot to learn about finance. So I have been living and breathing finance in my job. And also I did something in my degree. So that was something I did in my degree. So I think that's when I felt that MBA is the right next step for me, not just from a career shift point of view, though, but also from a people point of view, that I generally would like that exposure and meeting new people from around the globe. And I think it's a very, very interesting experience that you get to live. And how long did it take me from the whole process? I think a lot of my time was spent on GMAT, but and I had sort of a not a very typical journey as well. As I mentioned, that I spent writing my application towards the end of December, and I then just submitted round two. I would suggest that you take your time and start with the school that has the most comprehensive application, and also is the school that you would go for. So, for example, one thing I do tell people is that um, if one of your target schools is Stanford, you can start with Stanford because the essay is very introspective. It's what matters to you most and why. So you
Yes.
can start from that and you can build on that and then use some of what introspection you've done for other schools like HBS, Wharton, Booth, Kellogg, and all these schools. So it'll just streamline the process a bit. But of course, if you're having a hard time introspecting in general, it will not be the best way to start with.
Yes, I
But
would say
you should know when to stop, and you should know when to not fall down the spiral further. But
that's very
it's
true.
yeah, so it's a good starting point if you have hit the right nerve. Because it's a very, very long application in my point of view, and it takes time to just introspect and build that out. And a lot of it can be used for other schools. Yeah, but
Yeah,
the whole time of how much time it takes you to write an application is very personal. It also depends on how self-aware you are and how good at writing those thoughts, or how good at articulating those thoughts you might be. So take that into account and accordingly plan ahead. And I would say that this is a process that will take time, even though I did it a bit differently. But I would say block 2-3 months for it. That's what I've seen people do it generally.
anyone else wants to take? So I think this is something that I would say for GMAT prep, we can definitely give you really good estimates with regards to how long it will take. But I think what Abhinandini said is something which is true. You need about 2 to 3 months, but I think this is more of a process of self improvement in many ways too, because you've never, prior to starting your GMAT preparation or doing your application, you didn't know you had those 2 to 3 hours in the day available, right? And so this process by itself makes you a more planned individual, and I think, how many of you feel that you become a better individual just by going through this entire process of GMAT preparation and going through that application and interviews and all of that?
I
Yeah,
strongly
I
felt
think.
it. Yeah. Go ahead, Shivangi.
No, no, I was exactly saying the same thing, that I think a lot of discipline, a lot of management, because you're not just doing. For me, it was, I didn't apply to just one school or just three schools. I really had applied to more than five schools, and for me, then that's why the process took a lot more time, and that's why I started a lot earlier, because I knew I wanted to apply to a lot many schools. And at that time, because you're navigating between five schools, you're navigating between GMAT and your applications, essays, and LOR. So I think it's quite comprehensive. But what really helps is where you calendarize, where you know which school you're working on when, where you exactly have mapped out, say, your plan for next 3 months. It might just sound too daunting at that time, but it isn't really. And we can like sort of take you through it in the one-on-one sessions. But the whole point here being that, like that kind of scheduling and calendarizing really helped me. And now I feel that everything I do is much more organized. Everything I do is very well planned, because I went through this entire cycle of multiple school applications and then the GMAT and so on. So quite helpful there.
Yeah, I think we as humans can do great things if we focus our energy. And the only way we focus our energy is if we plan this out. Otherwise, you'll have five things going through your brain all the time. So creating that calendar, creating that plan, having good estimates for it, and worrying about one thing at a time is probably something that would make you super efficient. I think this is just one other question that I'd like to take. A couple of mistakes that people make while portraying English. What do you think?
Yeah, I think a big mistake there, and we've reiterated it, but thinking that you need formal management experience to show impact or to show leadership. We've harped on that all session, but that is not a necessity. You can show leadership in many different avenues. I think one other mistake that a lot of candidates make in showing these leadership examples is not showing the human interaction that goes along. Because all these business schools are defining leadership as working well with others. In a sense, when you boil it down, it's how can you work with others? And so while you may have changed a process that saved 50 million US dollars for your company, if you did that in a silo and didn't work with others and leverage the abilities of others to do that, it might not be the best story. The better story might be the time that you took a young employee under your wing and you were mentoring them and help them get up to speed, which, again, when you look at the dollars, the mentorship is much lower, but may actually be a better leadership example.
Yeah, I mean, leadership is like investment. You change a person's mindset or a few people's mindset. It continues to you continue to reap benefits from that point on. So that's a great example. I would just say I think it's not in your context, but when I was doing my MBA, we had this case study of Chainsaw Al, who would fire people to kind of make companies' numbers. Don't be a Chainsaw Al is what I would say. Um, so yeah. Anything else? Mistakes people make while portraying leadership, and then we're going to have the last question for the day.
I think I strongly resonated with what Dusty said. I think mindlessly boasting about something that you might have done would be something, would be a mistake in my point of view. I think it has to be very, it doesn't have to be very boastful and out there. It has to be very nuanced with what kind of effort did you do, what was the action that you took, who were the people that you interacted with to make that happen. And it's not just professional. I think personally reflecting what made you do it, I think a lot of people don't write about that, and a lot of people don't focus on it, on what is motivating you to act like that. I think that is something that people should focus more on, and and pick up something that's very relatable, right? Pick up something and articulate in a manner that it's relatable to an admissions committee or anybody who you would speak to, because that's how you would generally connect with people, is that and not boasting about some sort of a deal that you might have done, which may have earned you a lot of money, but talking about more personal experiences, relatability, how you might have made an impact, like what Dusty said about taking somebody under your wing if they're finding something problematic in a new work scenario. It's just, I think all of that definitely is much more relatable, and it makes you come across as your traits would be better visible. It depends on what kind of person you are, so it's very, very personal and authentic, and be that person. Don't fall into that trap of, oh, okay, the other person's writing about managing a factory of 100 people, so I should also be focusing
Yes.
on something like that. No, don't do that. It's very personal, it's very authentic. Keep true to yourself and do yourself that favor of just being honest and being vulnerable.
Yeah, one of the biggest mistakes I did when I was applying was I looked at resumes of second year B school students, and I saw them, their internship, they managed billion-dollar portfolios. And I'm like, and they were part of a team I didn't know at that time. Like, man, these guys are managing billion-dollar portfolios, and I'm an engineer. And that concern you shouldn't. And that's one of those things that I would recommend. So I'm going to have the last question for the Dennis. I think it's an interesting question. Should your post MBA goals, should you have nailed them down to the T before while you're applying?
Yeah, I think I can take that up. So this is a very important one, and that's why it's one of the services that we provide as well. Because I feel that when you're doing this entire process, starting from introspection to writing down your essays, one very important thing that all these B schools look at is that as an individual, what do you have your vision for? And that's what Abhinandini started off in her example. So what I feel here is they need to see that that vision really is there in every applicant who is there, and how are you still relating to that vision by being yourself. Like, say for example, if that's I'm going to share my story here. If I'm talking about diversity and inclusion as something that I'm very passionate about, and that's what I've been doing, say, for the past couple of years, then is my goal anywhere even close to it? Does that passion still fall into it? And how am I able to even justify what goal I'm setting for myself? Like, I mean, I'm not saying that it has to be 100% match, but at least there needs to be some thought to it, that you're showing that you're passionate about something, but then you want to do something completely opposite, which does not tie back to what you're portraying. So are you portraying an authentic story in itself, is what these B schools really check about. And that's why a complete clarity of both, at least like your short term goal, needs to be there. Of course, the school wants you to come here and explore, but they also want someone who at least have some clarity of what they want to achieve in life, or have some vision in their journeys of their careers. So I would say, please do have some clarity and really think about and use this introspection time to portray what you want to do, and how why it motivates you, and what is your passion behind it.
I think just to add to what Shivangi said, it won't just help. It's not just good from an application perspective. I don't know how good it is from an application perspective, to be honest, but I think it'll just help you make it clear for yourself of why are you even doing an MBA and which school to even go for.
That's true. That's very true.
Because if there is a certain sector that you'd like to be in, or a certain kind of a job that you'd want, you can actually filter out the schools according to it. So, for example, if you want to, I don't know, do fashion in New York, you can, like, Columbia would be your top school. So it would
And the
really
fashion program, by the way.
yeah, so it will really help you. It will really help you even understand the school that you want to go for better. And not just that, but you don't need to have it nailed down to the T, where you have to lay down a business plan, as I said the last time. I think they're just trying to understand your vision, and what exactly do you need to, what are the steps that you need to do in order to achieve that vision, and how does the specific school fall into it. I think that is the way to think about it.
Yeah, and one quick add to that, completely agree with what my peers just said. One thing that I did was I started with my long-term goal. What interests me? Sustainable supply chains. That's where I want to go longer term. What are the next steps that I need to take? The most effective way that I built that short-term goal was just talking to people that were in these different industries, in these programs. And so that's where I really identified what is the specific short-term goal immediately after my 2-year MBA program, which, consulting, recruiting, banking is going to start September as soon as you get on campus. And so having that nailed down, at least short-term, is I would say pretty important. Long-term, I would say, again, think about what interests you, what you're passionate about, and build a complete story that reflects your authentic self.
Okay, that's three very, very valid points and very, very related points. So just to really clarify what Dusty said, when he says consulting recruiting is going to start, he's talking about the internship recruiting that's going to start right away. And for consulting and for finance, it starts right away as soon as you join. And then for tech, usually towards December is when typically companies start, at least the top schools. So, but coming back to what you said, and in terms of just if I were to summarize this, so you're saying have a good short-term goal. It may not be the short-term goal that you perceive, but it should be a good, logical short-term goals that you have something to kind of start your MBA with, and maybe that changes, then that's absolutely okay. That you should have one good short-term goal. All right, with that, I want to thank everyone for joining me today. It was wonderful to have you guys, and I know there are a ton of questions out there, and that's where. Book one of these sessions and not just get that one specific question, but create that path to your dream MBA through these sessions. As I said earlier, we earlier had up to 100 sessions with the demand. I'm happy to extend that to co-fund up to 150 sessions or so. That's there. So it's just $19.99 or 25 USD, and it's a fantastic offer that we have. We also have another event which we have on GMAT Online. We have the enhanced GMAT Online that started on the 20th of May. We will have the GMAC talk about that in a couple of days on the same YouTube channel as well as our LinkedIn channel as well. So register for that session if you want to know about the enhanced GMAT online. How different is it to the online GMAT? Anyone over here who's taken the online GMAT? You've taken the online GMAT, okay. So we're going to talk about how the enhanced online GMAT is different. They've moved to a new vendor, that's Examity. What does it? What should you expect, and so on and so forth. Okay, with that, make use of this, and then if you need help with your GMAT preparation, we have an RC webinar this weekend as well. With that, thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time out, guys, and answering these questions. I'm sure the attendees benefited a lot from it.
Thank you, Rajat, for being a wonderful host.
Yeah, thanks for hosting.